Today, we're diving into the world of ancient Egypt, but we're focusing on a very special group of people, the scribes. They were the elite few who, in a way, held the keys to the entire kingdom.
Just think about that for a second. If you're one of the only people who can read and write, you're not just keeping records. You're the one who understands the laws, the history, the commands. You're basically running the whole show.
Well, in ancient Egypt, this wasn't just some hypothetical question. The power of writing was very, very real, and it was concentrated in the hands of one specific group, the scribes.
I mean, you have to remember, most Egyptians were farmers or laborers. So in that world, being able to read and write wasn't just a skill, it was like having a superpower. Scribes were the essential link between the pharaoh and the people, the ones who kept the entire kingdom organized and running smoothly.
So, how did you get to be part of this exclusive club? Well, let me tell you, the path to becoming a scribe was anything but easy. It was a long, tough journey that started when you were just a little kid.
The whole thing kicked off at age 5, and it was almost always boys from wealthier families who got to go to these special scribe schools. Now, they didn't just get handed paper and pen. Nope, they spent years, and I mean years, practicing on cheap stuff like broken pieces of pottery or limestone. Only after they'd memorized hundreds of complex signs and proved they could do it perfectly were they allowed to use the really expensive stuff, papyrus. And the teachers? They were incredibly strict. You had to be focused.
And this is what they had to learn: hieroglyphs. Now, these weren't just simple little pictures. A single symbol could be a sound, kind of like a letter in our alphabet. Or it could stand for a whole object, or even an abstract idea. And to make it even more complicated, you could write them left to right to left, or even top to bottom. You really had to be an expert to figure it all out.
Okay, so once you finally graduated, you became the engine that made the entire Egyptian empire run. Scribes were involved in literally every single part of society.
Seriously, look at this to-do list. It's insane. One day, a scribe might be acting like an accountant, calculating taxes. The next, they're basically an engineer, figuring out the materials needed for a giant pyramid. They recorded laws, they copied sacred texts, and they even acted as the local post office, writing and reading letters for people who couldn't. Without them, the whole kingdom would have just stopped.
Now, carving those beautiful, detailed hieroglyphs for every single shopping list or tax receipt just wasn't going to work. It was way too slow. So the scribes developed a brilliant shortcut: hieratic script. You can think of it as ancient Egyptian cursive. It was a much faster, more flowing version that was perfect for all the day-to-day paperwork they had to deal with.
Every scribe had their own portable toolkit, kind of like a mobile office. It usually had a wooden palette with 2 dried cakes of ink, black for most of the writing and red for important headings. They'd have pens made from reeds, a little jar of water to mix the ink, and of course, their precious rolls of papyrus. With this simple kit, they could work pretty much anywhere.
So, after all that training and all that hard work, was it worth it? Oh yeah, being a scribe was a ticket to a life of privilege, comfort, and a whole lot of respect. I mean, the difference between the life of a scribe and the life of an average farmer was just night and day. A farmer did backbreaking work in the fields, paid a ton of taxes, and could be forced into labor gangs. A scribe, they were exempt from all of that. No hard physical labor, no taxes, no military service. Instead, they got a comfortable home and a very high place on the social ladder.
And if you need one more piece of proof for how respected they were, get this. Even the sons of pharaohs, the future rulers of Egypt, were trained as scribes. That's because everyone knew that the skill of writing was the ultimate tool for leadership. You couldn't rule the kingdom if you couldn't read the records that made it run.
But the scribes' real impact goes way beyond just their own lifetime. Their most important legacy is that they became the architects of their own history. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? By writing everything down, they built a bridge across thousands of years, making sure their civilization and all its stories would never be forgotten.
When you really think about it, every single thing we know about ancient Egypt, from what the pharaohs decreed to what ordinary people bought at the market, we only know because a scribe, somewhere, at some point wrote it down. They didn't just manage the empire, they were the ones who wrote its story.
And that leaves us with a really interesting question. In our world of digital information, where things can disappear in a flash, what are the most important things we should be recording? If you were a scribe for our time, what story of our world would you want to tell the people of the future?